The Road Dogs are your summer 2024 champs in Rhode Island. We're going to break down the finals and how they made a historic run. We're going to recap All-Star Night and our three-point contest, dunk contest, and All-Star game. Who won Finals MVP, who won All-Star MVP, and more coming up on the show. Before that, shout out to our sponsors, Pristine Auto Clean RI. They've been our sponsor all season. You've seen them on the power rankings, seen them on some of the scores, the bracket. Shout out to them and give them a follow on Instagram. We like to shout out them in our last podcast of the year. We have a lot to get to, a very historic night in the finals, but let's get to the show. Play the song. All right, we said it in the intro, the Road Dogs. The Road Dogs. If you had the Road Dogs, you would have made a whole bunch of money if you were a betting man. Matt standing by. We're going to break down how they beat the Game Breakers. We both were wrong. They were letting us know it on the sideline at the game Monday night, and they earned it. So let's start off with the most important part of this. Congrats to the Road Dogs on a very good run, 4 playoff wins, and we're gonna kind of break the season down too, because they blew out the Game Breakers, and I think that's putting it nicely. I know it was a 91-73 game. That almost doesn't even do it justice. They were up by 30 plus in the third quarter, and at that point, you know, you're trying to be optimistic. I just want a good game all the time. Like, oh, well, you know, maybe they start chopping into this, and kind of the Road Dogs, to their credit, were like, this is, you know, just by how things were going, not in a bad way, just like, this is a wrap. And that's a credit to them. That's a credit to their defense, their effort. So let's kind of get to the game. In the finals, MVP Rion Watts with 20 points of his own, 13 rebounds, 4 steals. Really his defense, we've talked about it, the leader of that defense, starting at the point and putting pressure on the ball. And they played really well as a team and took care of business. So again, congrats, Matt. Not going off the stats too much. We're going to be updating those. I know we're going to redo it just to make sure those are correct. But we know the points are right. 20 points. We also have Kareem Cooper with 23, Shaq Ardrey with 25. They had balanced scoring. Just gameplay-wise, how were the Road Dogs able to build such a big lead over a Game Breakers team that we both picked?
Yeah, it just seemed like everything was going right for them in this game. Everything they did on both ends of the floor, whether it was rebounding or just getting steals and just being the scrappier team, you know, they brought it there. And even if you watched the game, at times it was close, but it just felt like the Road Dogs had that edge the whole time, kind of. They were just pushing the pace. It felt like they just got everything they wanted. And defensively, they played as a team that they didn't give any good shots up, really. I mean, Gian only made 1 3, and he only took 3 of them, which is a crazy number for him. He's usually putting up 10 or 11 attempts a game. The fact that he was only able to put up 3 is just a huge say to how well they were able to play defensively.
And it was a 20-point game at halftime, so you know, not even like a late surge. I mean, it was kind of a steady, you know, I don't even know what to call it. I'm at a loss for words on this whole thing because of how it transpired, right? And we were on here last week, you know, just by my kind of theory of there's always kind of one blowout somewhere in here where maybe you don't expect it, maybe you do expect it just because a team kind of makes a run, and not in a bad way, but we had 2 really close semifinal games. And so like I said last week, the Game Breakers didn't shoot it well. They are due, based on how they've played all year, to shoot it well, and that may lead to them building a lead. When any team is going to shoot 50, 52, 55% from 3, which the Game Breakers have done at times this season, any team that's going to do that, it's going to be hard to keep up with them scoring-wise, especially for a Road Dogs team that had to have the game go the way it went. Defense, fast break points for them, kind of angling the court. I talk about this a lot too, where it felt like the Road Dogs were playing downhill and the Game Breakers were playing uphill just about all games. So what I mean is the Game Breakers would come down and really weren't in transition as much. They might miss a shot, and it was the Road Dogs quickly getting right to the rim for a dunk like you talked about, a fast break 3, a kick out. Like it felt angled in the Road Dogs' favor from the beginning. They're really, and it was close. Gian talked about kind of having, a couple chances in that second quarter to maybe hit a couple shots and get it to a 5-6 point game and kind of keep themselves in it. He also talked about how important it was and how big of a loss it was for David DePina to kind of roll his ankle and go out, right? And so that kind of gets to that second quarter I'm talking about, where Rion was able to post up Hachi a little bit, and Hachi's a great defender. So it's not like it was an uneven matchup, but just they had success going to that. The Rhode Dawgs did. And the game breakers were like, all right, Hachi needed a break anyway, let's go big, right? With Gian, Jose, Charles Alexander, David DePina, and that kind of eliminates that offensive option, right? Who's Rion going to guard? If they have Jalen Ardrey in at that point, which they didn't, if they go with Karan Bostic, like they were just trying to shake up the matchups and find something that would work for them. And not even a minute with that bigger lineup on the floor, David DePina just steps wrong, rolls his ankle, and he has to come out. And we didn't even get to see that counter that the game breakers kind of had and never really had to go to a lot. It never really had all that option. They were always kind of missing one guy this game, and they had kind of 5 or 6 guys they could use, and that was kind of taken away from them. So what matchup-wise, Matt, and then I'll kind of give you some history on this Rhode Dawgs team being able to do this, but what kind of matchup stuff and what, I guess, surprised you, because we were both wrong again in this one?
Yeah, I don't know if there was any particular one-on-one matchup, but just the game inside the paint, I felt like that's where the Rhode Dawgs were just completely dominant. They had, I think, 12 more rebounds total, or just on the defensive end, than the Game Breakers did. Also, the Game Breakers, when you look at the stats, they actually did shoot better on a three-point percentage than the Rhode Dawgs did. The Rhode Dawgs shot, I think, 6 for 21, and the Game Breakers were 7 for 19. So they statistically shot better, and both teams shot 56% from the field, but it was just the way that the Rhode Dawgs attacked the rim consistently. We're getting those good looks, and at times it felt like I wasn't even really paying attention, or I was just not looking at the score, and then I looked at the score, I was like, holy shit, like, how did this just happen? But it was just causing tough shots and creating good looks at the rim for them, and then once it got to like a 30-point lead, you saw the Game Breakers kind of fading out a little bit, but still just the intensity they were able to bring in the whole game. Even they were up 20 at the half and were coming out in the half saying 0-0, 0-0, shouting it at the top of their lungs. So they just came in with the right mentality and just they got it done. Also, just their team play too. Yeah. 5 guys in double figures, can't ask for more than that.
The team play, that defensive mentality, I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to recap. So we talked about their semifinal win where they, had to kind of hold off the washed up boys in another grinded out game, 66-64. They beat Lob City by 4, so they were definitely pulling out these close games, the Rhode Dawgs were, where earlier in the season they weren't, right? They took care of give me 1 second, I'm looking at the wrong week. The Rhode Dawgs, beat All Talk Sports. I knew I wasn't crazy, 84-75 in the first round in that 8-9 matchup, and then even going back to the last week of the regular season, beating the Muffin Tops, and then prior to that, they lost to the Skyhawks in Week 7, but it was a 7-point game with a Skyhawks team that was rolling at that point, and they were able to kind of keep that a game. So they and we can go back earlier in the year, right? So Week 1 for the Rhode Dawgs, they beat Velocity. Week 2, and this is kind of where, a 2-point loss to the Halfway Crooks. In Week 3, they lost to the Washed Up Boys in overtime by 2. In Week 4, they lost to Lob City by 19. Where Lob City kind of controlled that game for most of that game. Week 5, the Rhode Dawgs beat the Air Mambas by 3 when the Air Mambas were and that turned out to be a huge game for seeding, but we're right there. And then Week 6, they lost to the Game Breakers by 16, a rematch. The finals turned out to be a rematch from that Week 6 game. So it's funny how that goes, and we have to compare it with an 8 seed doing this to that 9-seeded Duyes Boys team like I talked about in 2019. And what I like to bring up is, and I was saying this, I think, last night to some of the guys on the Rhode Dawgs. We were in Massachusetts at that league, and Cody Crawford, too, was there. And it's when there's that many teams, so we had 12, and I believe there was 12 or 14 in that season when the Duyes Boys also, as a 9 seed, ended up going on to win it all. And I want to get this right, the Rhode Dawgs record in the regular season, 3-5, it was the exact same record as the 6 seed. So not that they weren't really an 8 seed, but they weren't really an 8 seed. Like they were an 8 seed by definition, but talent-wise, we've talked about it, if they can figure out their rotations, and record-wise, they had the exact same record as a 6 seed. So that's a little deceiving. And if we go to the Duyes boys, which will take me a second to pull up, but in that summer 2019 season, just to compare it, the Duyes boys were they were the 9 seed, but they had the same record as the 5 seed that year. So that kind of goes back to that point. When there's this many teams, if there was 8 teams, the Rhode Dawgs would have been a 5 seed, most likely, right? If you kind of trim some teams from the front, trim some from the back, squish it together. So that is kind of what sets up for this recipe of a team like that making a run. And sure, they had to have stuff go their way. They pull out a close win against the Washed Up boys. In the semifinals, they beat Lob City, and they take care of that team, which was still a very close game in the quarterfinals. So a lot for them, but I like to compare it. And just, it's funny how when there's that, maybe it's something we look for now. I think 12 teams is the cutoff, but when we have kind of 12 or 14 teams, which 7, 6 seed maybe, is seeded lower than they should be, right? And we did that either or thing, a couple shows ago, but even going back to that, they were 2, 3, and 3, right? 2 wins, 3 kind of clear-cut losses, and 3 games that could have went either way. So they could have been 5 and 3, which was the same as a 5 seed. So I like to kind of circle back to all of that. But yeah, anything else on the finals, Matt, before we kind of get to some All-Star Night stuff? But congratulations to the Rhode Dawgs. Rion Watts, your finals MVP, but an impressive run. 5 straight wins to close the year, and they, that's why it's a one and done. That's why you play the game. Right, they're the champs. They're the best team this season, and that's how it goes. Anything else on the finals?
I think that it just goes to show, it's not all about having the best players on the team, but the best chemistry and the guys that can play the best together and just know their roles, just having depth too. They had that all season, and even though, like you said, they were 2 and 5, they could have easily been 5 and 2 as well. And it was definitely noticeable when you watch all their games during the regular season. It felt like everything was a nail biter, and really could have gone their way, but congrats to them. They had a great year and a great playoff, and it was very fun basketball to watch.
Congrats to the Rhode Dawgs, for sure. Let's get to some All-Star Night stuff, and let's kind of recap what happened quickly there. I know not a ton to talk about, but let's touch on it. We started off with the 3-point contest, or 3-point shootout, and it was Noah James of the Skyhawks defeating Jared Hansen, I know closely in the finals. Jared, a 5-time winner in Rhode Island, and so Noah James becomes the first non-halfway crook to win the 3-point contest in Rhode Island. I have to, it's all we have. So I have to throw that stat in there. But yeah, 3-point shootout, and I'll kind of let you touch on both that and the dunk contest, Matt. But in the dunk contest, Aiden Dozos with the win. Jumped over me. I was saying it before. It's been 8 years and 20-something seasons, and I'm there every All-Star night, and no one's jumped over me yet. So there you go. Aiden Dozos does it, and through the legs while jumping over me. So it wasn't just jumping over somebody, which was a good dunk for him. So Aiden Dozos is your winner of the Air Mambas, his first slam dunk contest win. Matt, from both of those, your first All-Star night, and so kind of what stood out from both of those competitions?
Yeah, the 3-point contest was actually more competitive than I thought it was going to be. A lot of pretty high-scoring numbers. I definitely had Noah James winning it going into it just because of how consistent he's been shooting all year. But my biggest surprise is I can't remember his name just because we've never really talked about him on the show. Number 1 from All Talk.
Mason Link.
Mason Link, yeah, he was lights out in the first round. He put up 21 points, and it was just very smooth shooting to watch. I was very impressed by everyone that participated. It goes to show just shooting form is going to win that, but it's not all about just shooting in there. I mean, Giannon hit that big game winner at the end, so.
Yeah, for the All-Star game, we're getting there, and I'll let you get to dunk in a second. On the 3-point, we have the ball racks, right? So it's different than getting like a pass in rhythm. It's totally different. And then, it comes down to consistency and form and not getting tired, which is I know something that you may not think about, but it is, especially if you kind of have to go back to back or one round then another. It's just long enough to be because you're constantly shooting. But Mason Link, I'm still having nightmares from when my team played of him hitting shots in the corner. So stat-wise, I know he definitely earned it. He showed why he earned to be in it for sure with a 21, like you said. That's a good score, and that got him into the final. But yeah, I can still picture him hitting shots in a game as well as in the 3-point contest. All right, dunk contest. What stood out?
Had to have been Aiden Dozos. I mean, that last dunk was pretty insane. It did take him a couple tries to get there, but it's not an easy dunk, especially someone his size. He's not a very big person, but he's definitely got some bounce to him, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, congrats to Noah on a big three-point contest win. Congrats to Aiden on that. And let's get to the All-Star game and how the West was able to pull it out. 125-116. We won't spend a ton of time because it was an all-star game and not a ton of defense. But in that fourth quarter, a target score, so the teams were going to 125. And it was like a 20-point game, I think, around that going into the fourth. And like I said, it was a 9-point finish. So the East got it and made it semi-interesting. And at that point, the way to do that, because there is no time and you're playing to a score, you have to get stops. You can't trade buckets because then the game would just be over and that team would get to the score faster. But it is the West, and notably on that team, Kawhi Simpson with 36, Jesus Thames with 32 and 15. He's your All-Star Game MVP. Noah James with 17 and Kareem Cooper with 17. Gian Abidjan with 16 and Leroy Brown with 7. Let me rattle off who came for the East. So Hendel Arole led the way with 35 and 10. Omar Rahman with 32. That was like a quiet 32, and I'm not even knocking anything. I didn't expect Omar to have 32.
I think like 20 of them came in that fourth quarter, too. He was just going right to the rack.
Yeah, which, hey, whatever works. Charles Correa with 22, Aiden Dozos with 19, and Nick Lemoyne with 8 for the East. But it is the West. Not that you have to analyze the game, but just what stood out in your first All-Star game from the game, Matt.
Yeah, I just thought the whole experience was super fun. You know, everyone's vibes were just up. Everyone was having fun out there doing trick plays. One thing I did remember that I really liked, Gian hit a nice little behind-the-back alley-oop pass off the ground. I thought that was a nice play, but just the overall environment was fun to be around, and, you know, it was just a good day to be there. Good basketball, too. A lot of good shots were made, a lot of good dunks, so gotta love it.
Yeah, and I'll put you on the spot in a second with your one word to sum up the season so you can get ready. Gian Abidjan with the game winner, because someone has to score to like end the game and hit that target score, and he hit 40-footer, 36, 37, I mean near half court. He hit a three-point shot to give the West the win in the All-Star game. So All-Star night, a good one for sure. Thanks to everybody who came out. Thanks to everybody who watched. We'll have more highlights going up this week and next week, and stay around for the top plays of the season. So we're going to be putting together the top 10 from all different weeks. And so it's usually a good mashup of plays, because we can definitely find 10 good ones, that's for sure, from the entire season. All right, Matt, your first season, your one word, and you can tell us why. I'm not going to hold you just to one word, but your one word to describe this Legacy League season.
One word I'd have to say is probably competitive, just like the competitiveness of every game in the league. And all these guys are just coming in, they're all past their primes, no offense there, but you know, they just go at it. They compete hard. You know, it's everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to play well, put up their good numbers. But mostly it comes down to winning. Even in the All-Star game, they were down by like 25 going into the fourth quarter, and they were like, "Let's go. You know, let's get it on. Let's go make this a close game. We can still win this," because it wasn't a time game. It was whoever gets to that point mark. So I just thought the overall competitiveness each week that was in this league was something very entertaining to watch, and just there's always something to look forward to, you know.
Shout out to you. A good season. Shout out to Kyler and Charlotte and Caleb and Adriana, all of our interns for the season. And shout out to all the players. It's you guys, it's the players, the people that keep coming back, that have played in multiple seasons. So it's fun. And that was our 10th season in Rhode Island and our third different champ. Lob City has 8. The Duyes boys, we've shouted them out way too much the past couple weeks, but we kind of had to with the implications that ended up coming true, have won. And the Rhode Dawgs are your summer 2024 champs in Rhode Island. Thanks to Matt. Thanks to everybody watching. We'll be back in the winter, starting in December, with our winter season in Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. More information for that to come. Follow us at legacy_leagues. And thanks for watching.